Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
39 minutes past 8 o'clock. Welcome to the live real talk. My name is Kassim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, this year marks 10 years since the constitution was promulgated, and of course that is 10 years, if not 7 years, since devolution effectively was put in place. Of course, we are looking at 2 more years until we go for the next election, and that will exactly make it at least 10 years when we go for the election. 10 years since devolution started to be implemented in this beautiful country known as Kenya. Now tonight we are introspecting into this whole issue of devolution. How is it? Has it helped Kenyans? Has it been politicized? Has it helped you, the Wanjiko, the Halima, the Abdullahi, and the Nur down there? And joining me tonight to discuss about that is one of the top performers in the first time for as far as devolution is concerned, the former governor of Wajir County, Mr. Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barigani, Governor.
Salam alaikum. Alhamdulillah.
Karibu sana, Governor.
Thank you
Long
very
time
much.
no see.
Thank you.
Uko Nairobi hii?
Nairobi.
MashaAllah. Karibu sana, Governor.
Shukran.
Happy to have you in set. Governor, to begin with, what's your thought on devolution? Do you think it's a blessing for Kenyans? Do you think it's something that was a wrong move for Kenya? You would have rather stayed with the previous form of government? What's your thought on devolution?
I think overall, in my view, it's a blessing. Yes, it's got its challenges, but the system of devolution that we have, even in probably the worst county where it's not really working as it ought to, and there are many counties where it's not working as it ought to.
Yeah.
In my view, it's still better than the fully centralized system that we had before. Yeah.
So you think it's really a blessing? You
In many ways,
are trying to be economical with information a bit by saying that there are some counties that it's not really working as it should be. What's the best picture? What's the ideal scenario of how best a devolution can work, according to you?
The system of devolution that we took in the 2010 Constitution is a unique system. It's actually, by and large, economic devolution. The power that is devolved is over the economy. And that's why governors, have literally almost no role in, say, for instance, security and things like that. But they have a role in basic services because they have been given resources for those basic services.
Okay.
So what then makes it work or not work is how well those resources are used. Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Okay, thanks so much. 0711707707 is our call in live, and I'm told that we have a call coming in. Hello, Horizon TV. Horizon TV, hello. All right, apologies for that. It's like the call has been disconnected. Wow, it seems like an interesting topic that we're getting calls from the first segment. Anyway, Governor, talking about devolution, one of the blessings that has come with was equitable distribution of national resources. You having sitting on that seat for 5 years, was this implemented? Is it being implemented until today?
What devolution has done is, with a split of functions between the national government and the county governments. And as I said, the functions that were devolved and transferred to the county governments are the basic services. We're talking of healthcare, water, trade, the basic roads at that level, not the national highways.
Yes.
Agriculture and livestock. These are basic livelihoods. These are the functions that were devolved and transferred. And the resources, attendant to those functions were also devolved and transferred.
Okay.
What that has created is a split of the revenues between the national and the counties. In the PFM, Public Finance Management language, it's called vertical allocation, the allocation of resources between the national and the counties.
Government.
And then once those resources for the counties come into a pot, right, this is how much the counties were allocated, then they share. And this is what's called the horizontal allocation. They share on the basis of certain formula, taking into account population, geographical spread of the county, how big it is, poverty index, and things like that. So in a sense, for the first time, there has been a somewhat objective, formula of distributing resources between counties for those specific functions. So the counties on the periphery, the so-called marginalized counties, up in the north, in the northeast, and certain parts of coast, and maybe even lower eastern, where government traditionally has not been putting money because they were deemed unproductive, are now getting resources which they can use to deal with those specific functions.
Over and above getting resources from the national government, another objective of devolution was to empower counties to actually produce their own revenues. So if the government was not putting money into these areas in the previous central governance system, what revenues, what are the activities that these counties can do, or rather are doing, to help them sustain their counties or provide revenue for the counties over and above whatever the central government is allocating?
See, counties are not the same in their ability to raise revenues, because the portion of revenues that counties can actually, by law, are allowed to raise or can raise by law are very basic. It's land rents and rates, user levies. It's not, the tax system is such that a lot of the collection is still being done at national level. For instance, you don't expect Wajir County to raise as much in land rates as Nairobi or Mombasa will do.
Agree.
Right?
Agree.
For user levies, things, for instance, to do with construction permits, or certain charges for say, waste disposal and things like that. So certain counties actually can raise that better than others. And those are the ones that are densely populated, where a lot of economic activity happens. So in a sense, whereas Nairobi might be able to raise, give or take, 10 billion shillings, a county up in the north will probably raise 100 million shillings. Because what do they raise revenues from? Livestock market, and a few rents and rates in the headquarters. Because those are, mostly counties with a lot of villages that are sparsely populated, where the populace is still struggling to deal with the very basics. They don't even have water, let alone clean water. So how much revenue can you raise? And if the ability to extract natural resources, or to give concessions for exploration and commercialization of natural resources was part of the revenue equation, some of those counties could well be very, very rich Turkana could easily be the richest county after a couple of
that,
years.
Exactly,
Right?
the virtue that they have oil.
Yes.
You know, having Mombasa with their port
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of those revenue-raising capabilities in those counties do not come up, under devolution. So the question of oil, for instance, in Turkana, it's pretty much the law is such that if a natural resource is found, it belongs to the national government. But now there's a question of coming up with a legal framework to see how much of that is given back to the counties. So, and you see, these services were being done by revenues or through revenues generated at national level largely. For instance, healthcare was not a devolved function initially. All these functions that have been devolved. So what has really happened is just to take a portion of those revenues or budget allocation relating to those functions and give them to the counties so that the counties can do the implementation. Because even for the devolved functions, the policy is still with the national government. So the counties are to implement. So yes, that's not to say that counties should not endeavor continuously to improve their own generation of revenues.
If I understand you correctly, are you trying to say that still a number of things that needs to be strengthened along the tenets of the devolution, the whole structure governing devolution? Are you trying to say that a number of things should be streamlined?
Yes, I think there's always room for improvement. There's a lot that can be strengthened, not only from a revenue perspective, but more so from a governance side. You see, these counties came into being after the 2013 elections. So yes, they inherited the human resource of those functions that were transferred to them. Yeah. And these were largely, as I said, these basic services, plus the county council, local authorities that existed, whatever councils they had, urban, town, county councils.
Yes.
But there's still a lot of gaps in governance. The institutional framework is still pretty weak, and we are largely seeing that, in many ways, your county is as good as your governor.
True.
Right?
I agree.
And the same can be said also of all else, really. I mean, in any organization, the tone at the top really matters. Whoever is in charge, their vision, their strategic directioning is always important. But for counties, it is particularly important because you'll see a working county, and then there's a change, and things, really, go terribly
There's lack
bad.
of inconsistency, basically.
Yeah.
Like, sorry to say, but whatever I see in Wajir County currently.
I wouldn't like to use Wajir as an example, but yes, in many counties, yes, you see that.
We just have to use Wajir as an example. Governor, you did an amazing job in Wajir.
Thank you.
We need to applaud you for that. And the nation witnessed that. Actually, Wajir County was one of the counties that was used to show how devolution has really worked and changed the life of Kenyans.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think one thing that needs to be done is to strengthen the institutional capacity of counties, so that even when there is change in government at that level, because the counties are governments, and governments are independent legal entities, they are a perpetual succession.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Wajir County will be there for as long as we're under this structure of counties.
Yes.
Regardless of who becomes
the governor.
Governor.
Who becomes the leader. Yeah.
So then there should be institutional capacitation, so that counties do not then fall from grace to grace, literally. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Governor, one of the objectives that was coming with devolution was to include the quote-unquote marginalized, and if I can quote the majority leader at the Senate, Kipchumba Murkomen, in his speech at the 5th Devolution Conference, that was in 2018 at the Kakamega County, he said that is devolution really empowering the minority, or we are actually using devolution right now to create other minorities in those counties? Do you think we are empowering the minorities as we ought to have in this current system of government?
Right. You know,
from the implementation part of it, not the idealistic,
the
implementation.
You know, this so-called people always find lines along which to divide themselves, right? And the majority-minority definition has some connotation of ethnicity, right? You know, it's like you go to any given county, there's a mix of Kenyans living in there. There are those who will be deemed majority, and there will be those who will be deemed minority. And it's basis that ethnic, nomenclature or classification, for lack of a better description. So, yes, I believe a lot more could have been done, but again, it depends on who the governor is, because inclusion is, again, an issue in most of these counties. And inclusion comes in two ways. One, by law, there should be regional representation. Even in this country, we talk of equity, regional representation. Is the government the face of Kenya? So the same should happen in the
county government,
in the counties, where knowing, the communities that live within that county, then you ought to constitute government in a way that reflects the face of the counties. You ought to reserve positions for the minority groups. And again, the question of resources, because in a lot of our counties, the engine of the economy is really the county government in a lot of these peripheral counties. If Wajir County, for instance, is receiving some 9 or 8 billion shillings in a year, the biggest amount of money coming into that local economy is really that allocation. And that's what drives the economy. So
the national allocation.
The national allocation. And there might be a couple hundred millions that they collect themselves, probably 100 million or sometimes even less. So that budget of the county government is the biggest amount of resources coming into that county. And that's what's supposed to provide basic services, but also it should spur some local economic growth. Because if you use, for instance, 50% or thereabout of that money for development, the fiscal expenditure that results from that will have an impact on that local economy, right? There are people who own hardwares. There are people who own equipment, construction companies, equipment. There are contractors of all manner. There are suppliers who supply the county government. If the contracting is done fairly across the county, and even the work plan that you work on, the developmental work plan, targets all corners of the county.
It cuts across.
Yeah, then this should be felt, and you supervise the work, and ensure that the work is done. A lot of the liquidity problems we're seeing in counties, in my view, is as a result of two things. The counties not paying on time for work that has been done, right? And two, people paying themselves for work that has not been done. Yeah.
Delayed payments.
For work that has been done.
And
yes,
payment for work that has not been done.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think, to deal with the question of minority, I believe if the county works for the majority, in many cases it also works for for the minority. What I mean is, if the county is a working county,
Yes.
right, where the county government is doing the right things for the right reasons, it has the right vision, the right strategy, and it will impact everybody, majority
And the minority.
and minority.
Cuts across.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Governor. I'd like to hold on that thought because we have to pay our bills and we are going for a very short break. That's how we break on the first segment right here in the live real talk. Please do not go away. Let's pay our bills right now. Suleiman, take it away.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Kiumbe dhaifu lakini jasiri.
Alitunukiwa sura nzima,
sura inayompa daraja yake inavyostahiki. Sharti ajigambe.
Naam, na pepo ipo chini ya nyayo zake.
Mpamba nyumba na nyoyo za wapendwa wake.
anayebeba majukumu yake pasina kupinga.
Mtazamaji, je, unamfahamu anayezungumziwa?
Bila ya kusahau hadhi yake na haki zake.
Ungana nami Rahma Swaleh na Sheikh Juma Amir
tukuelimishe na kukupa mwelekeo katika maisha ya ndoa
kwenye kipindi Dira ya Mwanamke,
kila Jumapili saa 2:30 usiku majira ya Afrika Mashariki ndani ya Horizon TV.
You're watching Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Are you tired of things running out? Are you tired of things finishing too soon? Now there's a new dawn. We are giving you extra. Get 50% extra airtime with every top-up. That's right, 50% extra airtime for calls and SMS across all networks. Simply dial *544*2* amount hash and buy any amount of airtime and talk for longer. What are you waiting for? It's better to talk. Simple, transparent, honest. Safaricom is for you.
هذا الدين قال الله قال الرسول قال الصحابة هم أولو العرفان انتهى.
Ili kuongoza kwenye njia iliyonyoka.
Sikizeni hadithi hii ya Mtume alayhi salatu wasalam. Hakuna atakayeweza kumfungia mtu mlango ambaye Mwenyezi Mungu alimfungulia.
Kuimarisha imani yako.
Thabbit qulubana ala dinik wa ala ta'atik.
Ungana na mashekhi wetu kutoka pwani kwenye mimbar.
Mimbar zinamwakilisha Mtume sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Ni Jumamosi na wakati saa 3 usiku katika Horizon TV, runinga uipendayo.
Enyi mliamini nyinyi, practice this direction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfectly.
Reminders from the mimbar.
Msije mkafuata nyayo na barabara na njia ya shetani. Saingine Muslim anafikiria ni kupata mali neema.
With the best of khatibs.
We tasted the pleasure, the sweetness of ibadah. Because the Prophet ﷺ said,
there are no times that can be equal to these days except maybe.
Tune in to Horizon TV and watch the khutbahs from different masajid every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m.
تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the second part of the Live Real Talk. My name is Faisal Kassim, and with me is one of the best performing governors that this Kenyan soil has ever experienced. We honor you and we celebrate you, Governor. Karibu sana to Live Real Talk. Still talking about Martin's devolution, and is it a blessing or how? What is it exactly for as far as devolution is concerned in this country? And we were talking about Martin's economy. And Bona Governor, you told me that there are two reasons as to why we're having liquidity problems in the counties. Let release of payments to work that has already been done, and payment for something that has not yet been done.
Let me explain that further.
Or nothing that has been done.
Yeah, let me explain that further. For work that has been done.
Yeah.
See, a lot of the contractors at the county level are small-time contractors. So when they get a job from the county government, you know, an assignment to construct something, they borrow. You know, they probably go to a hardware shop and get something on credit.
Yes.
You know, they hire tractors. They probably go to the local gas station, petrol station, and get fuel on credit. And once they have put up that structure or they've done that work, if they are not paid for it, then you are impoverishing everyone who was involved, right? From the one who supplied the inputs to the laborers to everyone. Some might even have borrowed from the banks to carry out the assignment. So and this has a vicious effect, on the local economy. For work that has not been done, and this is increasingly what we are seeing in a lot of our counties, that money is released for work that has not been done because a few fraudulent people fill the paperwork. You know, I'll give you a very basic example that's very common in northern Kenya today, in many counties. The so-called desilting of ponds. Because in many places we still use earth dams, right? Earth dams, mostly for places that have water challenges, they're good for the livestock, because you are actually, trapping the surface runoff when it rains. And that can be used for months, if not years. And you'll find that the earth dam is full of water. But people in the office have fraudulently filled paperwork to say that they have desilted that pan. The engineers will tell you, you cannot desilt a pan that's full of water. It has to be dry. So you have to go through a very severe drought season, and it's got to literally dry for you to take in tractors, but that money will be paid. So that means no tractor was hired, no fuel was bought, no laborers were paid.
Contracted,
were contracted
to do that job.
Right. And that's part of public money.
And money has been released.
Yes. And that money is just moving from an account in Nairobi to another account in Nairobi. It has no effect whatsoever on the local economy. Roads that have not been graded, for instance, where the paperwork is filled and it said they've been graded. So this is the kind of thing that now is causing liquidity, because that's money that should have been felt in that economy, but it's probably just going into accounts here. It's fraud.
Pockets.
It's pure fraud. So for the work that has been done, and chances are that the ones doing this have a more urgent interest in paying this kind of fraudulent work than the work that has been done.
The work that has been done, yeah.
So for me, the basics of fighting this kind of thing really starts with very basic analysis. If this county gets X billion shillings at the end of the fiscal year, it should be possible to know where the money went. A governor should be able to sit and say, I drilled, especially in those peripheral counties, because we know what our problems are, we know where we spend the money. It should be easy to say, I drilled this number of boreholes, I built this number of dispensaries, I tarmacked this number of kilometers of road, I gravelled this number of kilometers of road, I built this number of ECD schools, I paid so much in bursary. This should be verifiable. But if you see 10 billion has gone into a county, but you cannot see a single structure, right?
Simply on paper.
On paper.
Nothing on the ground.
Or 10 billion has gone into a county, but there's no single working ambulance, then there is a problem.
Wanasema kwa ground vitu ni different.
Yes.
Governor, let's look into, still on Mara's economy, and the wage bill in these counties. It is huge, Governor. Do we need that? In his address, His Excellency the President, if I can quote him, after finishing his official speech, he wanted to add 3 things. And the second thing out of the 3 things, he mentioned about the budgets of the wage bill in these counties. That was last year in Kirinyaga. And he gave an example of a county that they are using 600 million to oversight 800 million. 600 million to oversight 800 million. He did not mention particularly the actual county, but again, I don't know for confidentiality purposes, but I mean, using 600 million to oversight 800 million, Governor, this is mind-blowing.
Yes.
Why all this?
The wage bill issue is also, again, a really complicated issue, for the simple reason that the counties were at different levels, right? There were counties, at the point of transfer of functions or at inception that were already dealing with a huge payroll problem because they had too many workers, and these are mostly the urban
setups,
setups, or the so-called well-to-do counties. The ones that were deemed, well-to-do or rich, for that matter. We're talking of probably counties in, urban areas, Mombasa, Nairobi, and Nakuru, the like. But there were other counties also where basic, capacity was lacking, right? So the first 5 years in those peripheral counties, you would have expected quite some substantial growth in the human capital. I'll give you a very basic example. When I took over Wajir County, on paper, we had 337 healthcare workers.
On paper?
Yes. But the ones on the ground were 240. So the rest were ghost workers.
In 2015, you did a head count?
Yes.
Literal?
Yes, we've done a number of head counts. Well, when we took over, we did a head count of the staff that we were taking
inheriting
over
from the previous,
inheriting from the local government and also from those national government with respect to the devolved functions. So we realized the example of healthcare, on paper 337, on real basis 240, and then we constructed many dispensaries. We expanded hospitals. We constructed about 37 dispensaries, 42 maternity clinics, and then we expanded about 3-4 hospitals to level 4. Level 4 is where you can do basic cesarean and and other surgeries. So we needed more healthcare workers. By the time I was leaving, I think we had about 850 thereabout.
Wow, mashallah.
And the challenge then was really to get nurses, because the nurses that were graduating from all colleges and who came from that county, every time we wanted to recruit will just be about 30 or so, when we needed much more.
You wanted them in large numbers?
Yes. So we had to do a medical college, which is not really our function, but because that should have been done by the Kenya Medical Training College. We constructed the facilities, the boarding, the classrooms, everything, and handed over to them and told them, look here, we really need a pipeline of nurses and other, healthcare workers to be able to run our facilities and to cope with our growth. So that would be expenditure on payroll that is justified because you are dealing with a critical, devolved function, right? Healthcare is one of those very critical, devolved functions. But increasingly, the counties then became just employment bureaus, literally, to the extent that, a lot of generalists, who are not serving in very critical functions were recruited. And when I left Wajir, the payroll was at about 190. Now I'm told, I'm not there, it's about 289. That's in a span of
3 years.
3 years. So, so you have to control, you have to see, because for those very basic critical services, healthcare, early childhood education, the whole concept of ECD was literally non-existent in a lot of our counties.
True, that's very true.
Right? So we had to start building ECD schools, ECD classrooms, and recruiting ECD teachers. Because a lot of the kids in those places would probably be brought from the nomadic setup to start standard 1, sometimes standard 2 or even 3. So we had to, because the settlements now were increasing, people were becoming a bit more sedentary, we had to set up those. So you will recruit 500 or 600 ECD teachers. I don't see that as something that's bad, even if it's payroll cost. So, but you have to budget and you have to know what split you need to maintain between development and recurrent, because recurrent is critical for service delivery. Even as you build more dispensaries, you have to staff those that you've already built or those that are inexistent.
Yeah.
So for us, we tried our best to always make sure that we had a decent split, and we controlled recurrent, and whatever recurrent was, sometimes there'll be some certain recurrent that is pretty critical. You're in a drought situation, right? Your people are nomadic. They literally scamper looking for pastures. It gets to a point where the livestock becomes so weak, you have to track water to where they are, right? So you have to, hire tanks, water tracking. Water bowsers.
Yeah.
You've got to pay for fuel. You've got to do all manner of allowance and all that. So that is a critical intervention. What is unacceptable is just, recruiting tens of or hundreds or thousands of people in services that are not critical. I'll give you a very basic example. There's guidance as to how many advisors a governor can have. This guidance has come from both the Council of Governors, and this was done by the Transition Authority. I was part of the team that was negotiating with the Transition Authority in the whole setup thing, but also from the SRC, right? Yeah. An economic advisor, political advisor, 1 or 2 special advisors for community relations and things like that. But you'll find a county where the governor has some odd 50 advisors on the payroll. And these advisors are at director level. So you'll find an illiterate old man being put on the payroll to be an advisor, earning twice what a doctor is earning, right? It might be politically expedient, right? It might be politically expedient because probably the governor thinks this old man is critical in the clan,
the clan wars,
nomination process,
factor,
or a clan endorsement process. But is it the right thing to do, right? And how many entry-level nurses will you have recruited with that kind of money? So sometimes the local setup also does not reward doing the right thing for the right reason.
We set that local setup.
Yeah.
Again, at the end of the day, the buck stops with us. And you've mentioned very important thing, Governor.
On the payroll, another thing that I forgot.
Yeah.
When human capital, with respect to the devolved functions, was transferred to the counties, you're actually taking out numbers, right, and people from that payroll to the counties. So what was the expectation? That the payroll at the national level was going to come down. Within the first year, it had gone up. The payroll at the national level, within a year or two.
That, because it's entangled with corruption at the end of the day, right?
So that means the national government probably recruited more people at the national level than they had transferred.
To do what?
To the counties.
To do what?
So, and I think there was actually an Auditor General's report. There was a special task force that was set up some time back, I remember, to look into that matter. And the findings were amazing, that devolution, even in spite of transferring, hundreds of thousands of staff from national to county governments for those devolved and transferred functions, did not result in a reduction of payroll at the national level. So the problem of recruitment is as much, it's an issue at the national level as it is at
the county level.
At the county level.
Very interesting, Governor. Yeah. And I'd like to talk about some of those devolved functions, but again, I'm told we need to pay our bills once again, and that's how we go for the second break right here on the Live Real Talk. Please do not go, because this is going to be very short, and we're coming back with a bang to finish it. Live Real Talk right here with Governor. Don't go away.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Are you finding difficulty to find us on Azam decoders? Rescan your Azam decoders and find us on channel 008. Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the third and unfortunately the last segment of the Live Real Talk. My name is Kassim, and we are still with Governor talking about matters devolution. And Governor, we were talking about some of the functions that have been devolved coming from the national government, redirected to the county government. And you mentioned one aspect, health. I think you started working on health even before it was devolved, by starting the project of putting up the nursing school and stuff, even before it was devolved. Do you think it was a good idea to devolve the health function and then we're having other functions like security and education? What's your thought on that, Governor?
And healthcare was one of the first functions to be devolved. So even as the counties was set up, one of the first functions to be transferred was indeed healthcare.
The health function.
Again, Faisal, counties are different. And I think for the counties in the periphery, it was a blessing for healthcare to be devolved. Very basic example. As I told you, I inherited 337 workers on paper, 240 working.
All the actual ones, yeah.
Yes. One level 4 hospital that was, more of a dump site really than a hospital. A lot has improved, in terms of both human capital and in terms of facilities, in terms of training, in terms of drug supply, for the medicines. But again, I know there's a push by the healthcare workers for the setup of a health commission.
Health Service Commission, yes.
Health Service Commission. And they want to replicate, I think, what the teachers have. It's a tricky question because, you know, from my experience, and this might not be politically correct to say, the biggest problem we had with healthcare workers at the county level was one of their accepting to be supervised, right? Because, you know, a lot of them, you know, first of all, for instance, let's take the doctors. How long does it take to train a doctor in this country?
6 years, maybe.
6 years, probably 7 with the internship. Who becomes doctors? The grade A
top performers.
Top performers, right? When they come into the government system, I think to them, a lot of them, the pay doesn't make sense. You know, although they have allowances that are much higher than the generalist cadre employees, it still is not a lot of money. So a lot of them would want, yes, to be on the government payroll for security, you know, stability and security reasons, but do their own
side hustles.
Side hustles, the locums and, you know, private clinics. One of the things, and I don't mind saying this on national TV, that I discovered when I became governor was doctors referring patients from the hospital
to their clinics.
And referring back for surgery from their clinics to the hospital so that they can use the hospital facilities. So there were no, you know, boundaries between their private business and
the official work that they're supposed to carry out.
Yeah. Having said that, I still think it was a good decision to devolve basic healthcare. And I actually think it was a wrong decision not to have devolved basic education. And there's a reason why I tell you this. We've had security challenges in northern Kenya. And what you see is that whenever there is an attack, you know, a terror attack, these counties are huge, you know. Wajir is 57,000 thereabouts square kilometers. And, you know, to move from one corner to the other corner, you might have to do like 600 kilometers from north to south. If something happens, for instance, in the south, yes, the teacher who is 600 kilometers up in the north will leave his job and come and demonstrate in front of TSC,
the TSC in Nairobi
headquarters, because they see this as an opportunity to be transferred out of a hardship
area.
But the healthcare worker will stay put. Why? Because the healthcare workers is on the
government.
Is on the payroll of the county. This other guy is in the payroll of
the commission.
Of the commission. So there's a bit of politics in this thing, you know, where we're not being very honest in discussing things as they are. For me, the solution is really to look into the remuneration package for the healthcare workers, because it's a very difficult job. It's a very specialized job, right? And then it's that much more difficult when they're working in very remote areas. But you know, taking it back to national government, in my view, is not the solution.
What of security function? Do you think it should be devolved? Do you think it is right placed the way it is under the national government? Do you think the county governments, despite the information that they do have with the locals and they understand the demographics and the dynamics of the local area better, do you think they are better placed to handle the security function?
Again, I can speak to that issue, on the basis of the realities in those peripheral counties. In those counties, everything is that much more difficult to manage. Look at Nairobi. Nairobi is what, 600 square kilometers?
Yeah.
Mombasa is probably 400 square kilometers. To manage security in Mombasa, managing security is difficult everywhere, but to manage security in 400 square kilometers
cannot be compared with 600
with managing security in 57,000 square kilometers
True.
with 300-kilometer unmanned border with Somalia. Right? So there are arguments for and against involving county governments in the management of security. The arguments against has to do with the perennial clan clashes, where then it can be alleged that the county has taken sides in those clan conflicts. So a lot of the clans might see fairness if it's been managed by a non-local posted from Nairobi. That's the case that has always been used, not to devolve certain aspects of the security function. But there's another side to the story. There's a serious, resurgence of Al-Shabaab now in northeastern Kenya, in the northeastern counties, and even certain parts of coast. You know that. Wajir has probably experienced, some odd, 10, if not more, bizarre attacks in the last 2 months or so. Yesterday, today, there was an attack on a bus. For instance, it's been in the news all over. And these people are now operating within the rural setup. This was initially seen as elitist. They would come and hit targets in the towns and all that. Yeah. But now they are blowing up cars and motor vehicles belonging to the security personnel deep within the rural setup. And planting mines on dusty roads. Working with the the local herdsmen, because if you give a local herdsman 10,000 shillings and a mobile phone and tell him, if this car passes here, let me know, call me.
True.
They will do that.
Definitely they will.
Because again, there's economic hardship in these areas. It's no excuse, but it's happening. Can that be dealt with without involving the local community?
Never. Very difficult.
And who better to engage the local community than the county government? The people who provide them with water for their livestock, right? Early childhood education for their kids.
The kids.
The people who grade that road that they're planting the mine on.
Yeah.
So I think it's an area where counties could have some roles, whilst acknowledging that where we are now, it probably is good that the national government is pretty much the one that handles, Ethiopia now is looking at its security arrangements with respect to their devolved, they have what do you call a regional setup. They have regional. It's a federal
government system.
Federal government system.
Yeah.
Where the local regional presidents has a lot more powers on security than for instance in Kenya, where it's governors have
the governor
have no role.
Can equate with the governor.
Yeah. But even there,
yeah,
they have the challenges of clan and community conflict, and at times you'll find the people on the payroll as the regional police in this region engaging in fights with those that are in the payroll of the next regional
government,
because their counties, the regions are fighting. So it's, there are two sides to it. How do we make sure that, the counties do not get caught up in those clan conflicts? And as governor, the last thing you'd want to do is to get caught up in those, because it can be used to destabilize you. And there will be people who will actually do that to stabilize you and to paint you in bad light. But on the other hand, the aspects of anti-radicalization, because the anti-radicalization question is also a security question, really.
Yeah. And there was the county government action plan against in countering violence extremism, right? That was released last year. The report was released last year.
And in my view, it's a lot of these things are top down, and that's why they don't work. Even, of course, and then we are reactionary. We react. We're not proactive.
Yes.
And at the national level, the blame comes, hard and fast on the local leaders when things go wrong. But when things are okay, when things are calm, there's not a lot of engagement. I can tell you that for sure.
I agree.
And that's probably where we need to have a proper anti-radicalization strategy that engages with the counties, with the local leadership, and focuses on the preventive aspects of things, as opposed to reacting to when the incidents happen. And of course, on this one, we have to work together. The communities, the national government. While the national government does the hard side of things and border control and taking the battle to these people, this is now getting to a point where the local herdsman is radicalized. The local herdsman is radicalized. It's no longer the question of, the way people would always try and put it, the madrasa students or the madrasa teachers. No. It's actually the ordinary herdsman.
Really?
That's been radicalized. Yeah. And we need to sensitize the communities. We need to come in heavy on this before it gets out of hand.
Need to be proactive, of
yes,
course.
We need to be. If this is not dealt with...
So you think it should be proactive?
I'm seeing...
It should be devolved function.
I'm seeing a Boko Haram situation in northern Kenya. Within months, not even years.
Really?
Yes.
So you think you should be devolving the security function, you think will help mitigate this?
I'm not saying we devolve it. I'm just saying we should work together with those local communities, and the counties must do their bit.
With the biggest with the biggest responsibility falling on who? Can you say the county government or the national government?
The counties must do their bit.
Counties must do their bit.
They cannot. How do you send an ambulance to pick up an emergency delivery in 100 kilometers from where you are, if you know there are people on the road putting landmines? How?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
You can't.
So it's as much a county problem as it is a national security problem. So what then we need is synergy. How do we come together? Right? And the basic intelligence of who these people are, where they operate, must come from the local communities, and the counties must be involved in that.
So you need to work together, basically.
Yeah.
Interesting. Governor, your parting shot as we are winding up tonight.
My parting shot is that devolution is indeed a blessing, because there's so much that has been done in the last 7 years that could have taken some of those peripheral counties probably 30 years to do, had it not been for devolution. But we must strengthen governance structures. We must deal with the issue of runaway corruption in these counties, which is getting worse by the day. We must not give the national elite And the national elite, my definition of national elite is everyone who has a centralist mentality, that everything must be at the center. Everyone who does not want things to be decentralized. We must not give them an excuse or a reason to kill devolution.
Thank you so much, Bwana Governor. Really appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Thank you,
brother. Sana, Bwana Governor. A lot that we had planned to speak about, but I'm told, unfortunately, our time is up, Bwana Governor. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
We wish to have you here once again, talk about BBI, and if whatever is proposed in the BBI is a solution to the current challenges faced in devolution. We'd like to have you here. Inshallah, Bwana Governor.
We'll be glad to. Inshallah.
Thank you so much, Bwana
Thank you,
Governor.
brother.
And that's how we can wrap up the show, Bwana Governor. Today, we can just rise up, and that's how we walk out of the set. And I say thank you so much for being with us here tonight, for keeping us company. I'm with Bwana Governor. Bwana Governor, you can tell them goodbye on this camera. Wambie tunaenda kulala.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
He said it. Thank you so much, Bwana Governor. Asante. Jazakallah khair.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Horizon TV, kurunzi ya taifa.
Are you tired of things running out? Are you tired of things finishing too soon? Now